I was going to ask you, what are
The
the
benefits are.
What are the mechanics? We live, Reg?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for tuning into this edition of the Renshaw Report. Maria reported from the city too tough to die in New London. Our guest today is Rob Brule. Rob's running for his second term as the first selectman of the great town of Waterford. Rob, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be here, Murray.
Let's get right to it. Let's do the hot issue first,
Sure.
and that's the data center.
Okay, yeah.
I was interested, when I was reading a little bit about it, it's a bit of a controversy in Waterford. There's a group that's opposing it.
Yep. I don't know if they're opposing. I think there's some concerns of the unknown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's
It's fair.
legitimate, yeah.
Yeah, it's fair.
What are the mechanics of making something like this happen? You as a first selectman, you were as a first selectman are handling it from Waterford, but are you empowered to just make this deal without it going to a committee or a board, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the only role that I won't say the only role. The significant role I played in this process was the host fee agreement. So
The what?
A host fee agreement. So a host fee agreement has to be established to make it possible for a data center to come into the state of Connecticut or a town in Connecticut. Until you have a host fee agreement with the town, there's no data center, there's no possibility of a data center. So the largest role that I played was making sure that I thought it was a great idea. I thought the idea was great for the town. I saw the benefits of not only the 100 jobs that would be on that property, but I saw it as an opportunity for Millstone to stay, Dominion to stay longer. There's a commitment to Millstone. There's a commitment to nuclear energy, clean energy, carbon-free energy. So I thought it was a great idea because what I knew of data centers was they were all diesel generator, powered. Like everything about them was somewhat quote unquote dirty. So I like the idea of nuclear energy being the source of power for a data center. I thought that would just made sense in the years that are coming, generations from now. So that got me interested, and then we did some homework, and the long story short, what ends up happening is the host fee agreement is negotiated by the first selectman and the board of selectmen. So I come and I go to the board of selectmen and say, hey, here's a host fee agreement that I've talked to the developer about and said this would be a fair amount for the town to receive. These are the expectations we have for the data center if it comes into the town of Waterford. So what I did was I traveled to Loudon before everything was said and done. I knew I was going to go tour data centers, learn more about them. But at the end of the day, it turned into a positive opportunity for the town to explore. There were a lot of people, and still to this day, they thought that was the done deal, because they just don't know the process. And the process really was just, you have to have a host fee agreement, and then the developer can talk to Millstone and Dominion, and they can create their opportunity on that site, which is probably more steps than I know.
Excuse me, Rob.
Sure.
The host-free agreement is mandated by the state.
Correct.
And is that? I was kind of trying to read a little bit about it, 'cause I don't understand it.
Yeah.
They are non-taxable per the state of Connecticut, but
Correct.
the town has the right to negotiate in lieu
of
that.
taxes, this would be the payment that we would like to receive, yes.
So the host-free agreement is required by the state of Connecticut,
It
and
is.
that's the beginning of it.
Yes, and that host fee agreement goes immediately to the Department of Economic Development. They would then say yes or no to that agreement. And this whole initiative started in 2021 by Governor Lamont. There were no data centers of this scale, anywhere in New England. And the governor created this legislature for someone to host a data center. You saw some things on Groton, and I think one of the largest issues they had was, and I don't want to speak for them because I didn't get too much into the weeds with Groton, but what I read and what I heard was the diesel generated power. You have to check your power. You have to run your generators all day long. And these generators aren't our Honda Quiet ones. They're 18-wheeler size generators, and probably 80 to 100 of them running to keep power going. So not having diesel generator was the one thing that I was pretty adamant about, because, like anyone else, I don't want noisy neighbors. No one does. So I was very conscious about that. So when we did the host fee agreement, I wouldn't budge. No diesel generated backup power supply as the primary source. There's no way we're doing it in Waterford. And they said, okay, we understand. We will come up with another option, which they did, which is nuclear power, creating the power and the backup power. So there's a lot more smarter people out there coming up with designs and engineering to make all that happen. I don't know exactly the details, except I knew what I didn't want in town, and I knew what our residents didn't want in town. And I learned that from Groton. I saw that. That was one of the big drivers that people were against. So I saw that, took advantage of that knowledge, and then I negotiated a fair, what I thought was a very fair, fair deal for the town of Waterford.
Well, it seems there's going to be a huge tax incentive for the town of Waterford.
Yes.
For this project. This is a big project.
Yeah, it's not small. It would be the $8 million.
Yeah, it's second only in Milltown, right?
Yeah.
So where are we now with this?
Right now, we're in a, we're basically waiting on a submittal. So because all I do, or all the Board of Selectmen does, is we sign the host fee agreement, it then shifts over to a land use permitting process. There is the decision was made by the Board of Selectmen in a 3-0 unanimous vote, and then the RTM voted on it as well, and they voted 25-0 to approve the host fee agreement. That got approved in March. There's been things going on, back and forth, but nothing in terms of the regulatory next step, and that's land use. This is by design. It next goes to permitting, building department, town hall, not the first selectman. So this is a regulatory process now. It has been since we signed the host fee agreement. So now all of a sudden, when that day happens, there'll be a public process.
So the outcry today or yesterday to have a public hearing, that is going to in fact happen during the regular process of development.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the
Now,
process that we have.
One other thing I want to touch on before we go some other stuff.
Sure.
You went to Virginia.
Yeah, I did.
My question to you is, why didn't you take one of the opponents with you to hear this to physically be there with you to hear the noise? Wouldn't that have been prudent? I don't mean to be off base.
Yeah. No, I think for me it wasn't. I agreed, so I didn't need an opponent with me to show me what was a concern. I didn't go to Loudoun County and where they have 125 data centers. They have a grant list of, I think their grant list was over $10 billion last year alone. There's 450,000 person county. So when I went there and I saw what they built and what they did, I wanted to go to the worst ones. I wanted to go to the ones that weren't good. I wanted to go to Manassas, the one that was on CNN and Facebook, and what a horrible neighbor this one data center was. So I went right to that neighborhood and I saw it for myself. I needed to do that for my own peace of mind, of being a leader and understanding what.
And what did you witness?
I witnessed a 20-year-old data center with old technology, with no parapet walls, no engineering to quiet the air conditioning units, and a landlord that didn't care about the neighbor and told them that. So all these perfect storm moments of a 20-year-old, horribly designed, old part, large data center, because down there, they have these decimal readings that aren't fair to anybody. They're beyond, a car race in terms of measuring. So they weren't people. I don't think they were real community friendly. they certainly wouldn't have been community friendly in Waterford, because I know that area. I grew up in this area. I know with this area. So I think what I learned about Loud and going myself, I got a real good chance to see what that's what I don't want. These are what I want.
So are you confident that the noise issue is not going to be an issue?
I'm absolutely confident.
Okay,
I'm absolutely confident.
let's move on to the other big thing happened in Waterford, in the duck pond. I just drove by there, and
Yeah,
my first question is that a natural pond?
no, man-made.
Okay, and is it a sand bottom?
It is a sand bottom. That was good. That was good, Murray. Not many people know that there's a sand bottom there.
There are fish in there.
I feel silly talking about this, but this has consumed like 3 years of my life. Yes, fish that got moved, that got
Really?
transplanted by the contractor. We had 2 volunteers, I think, working through our wetland or our planning department. We had turtles that we relocated. Some have taken the turtle bridge into another habitat right next to the duck pond. But I really was proud of the team, taking care of the wildlife that needed to be relocated. Rope Ferry Commons, the condos, they were great. Please bring us all the fish and we'll hold all those for you. It was just such small town kind of neighbors, but it was neat at that scale, just behind the scenes, seeing all that happen. It is a sand bottom. It is about 3 to 4 feet of muck, sludge they call it, and it's just decades and decades of decay, leaves, runoff, and it's just made the duck pond, some people called it the black pond, because all you see is this dark black water, and that's not a healthy pond. So I saw that immediately when I was kind of campaigning for my first run with Jody. I really wanted, we don't have a main street. We're never going to have a main street, but we could have a really nice town center. And I just thought, let's continue this vision of a town center park where people can gather with their family of all ages. And it just materialized. And I was lucky. I got bipartisan support. Some of my, some opponents were very clear. I will never approve this. Please pave my roads instead, which I totally get. I understand it. But when COVID hit, it made it even clearer to me that I was doing the right thing. That COVID hit, we need outdoor space, so we used ARPA money, not taxpayer money per se. We used some of that ARPA money to make sure that we could fund this park for
When's the
everyone
completion
to
date?
enjoy. Well, we're looking next fall, next spring is completion. There's an aggressive schedule right now because the contractors are looking at the weather patterns, and as you just saw probably yesterday or today, a lot of sun in the forecast for the next probably 10 days, which is great. The dredging is the most important part. People don't realize that we have to pay $400,000 to ship this out of the state of Connecticut.
Really? It's
tests.
considered hazardous waste?
It is. It doesn't matter
I
whether
bet
it's
you it'd be great fertilizer.
we all thought that. But the state of Connecticut has strict, and to the credit, they have strict mandates on, dredging material, and to their credit, we have to follow that. And the longer I wait to do this, it was just going to be $500,000 next year, $600,000 to get it out the next year. It's big business now. So I was glad that everyone on the board of, selectmen, the board of finance, and the RTM all voted to do this project and to dredge it. Because at the end of the day, it turns into $1 million project when it's all said and done, just to prepare and dredge that pond to get it to a healthy state. And we're going to do it, and we're doing it now. It's fun to watch too.
It is.
If the viewers are out there, if you park up at the library and watch these people work, you'll see them not only moving the sludge, they also can only work in a 5,000 square foot area because the Army Corps of Engineers has said this is your area that you can work only at a time. So it's regulated. Our environmental planner is out there daily. Our planning director is out there daily. They're giving real-time reviews and checks of that property. So you're going to see a boardwalk. You're going to see a pathway around. You're going to see a 1/4 mile, 8-foot wide concrete pathway that's ADA accessible. I'm committed to ADA accessibility. I did it down at Waterford Beach. I'm doing it here. I'm going to do it over at the dog pond. I'm committed for accessibility for everyone. And it's something that when I leave, I'm going to be proud that I I did do this. It's hard to do, but when that project's done, it's going to connect the library to the pond, the community center to the pond. The seniors can access the pond in that park area. There'll be benches, there'll be lights. So you can walk if it's a little dusky, and you can get out of there and you want to walk safely home, and you're on the concrete.
Will there be
paths.
ice skating available?
We hope so.
Hopefully it's not going to be
we
cold.
hope so. Yeah, with global warming, who knows?
Yeah. Forget the ice skate. Rob,
I'm sorry to take so much time, but
that's all right.
It's a neat program.
I have no retention, so I jump around.
I'm ready. I'm ready for the next one.
Out of order. With the exorbitant cost of energy, and I'm referring specifically to those thieves, Eversource, what impact does that?
You know they're our second largest taxpayer in the town of Waterford.
Yeah, I know that.
But they do. They charge an awful lot. Mary.
No
one's watching, are they?
What?
No one's watching.
No,
right?
nobody
Yeah,
watches.
Okay. Yeah, they're charging a lot.
With the exorbitant rates that we're all being charged these days, what effect does that have on the town budget? Or does it have an effect?
It really, yes and no. We're doing an energy audit now. So our RTM 2 years ago or a year and a half ago created an energy task force because we were conscious of costs and conscious of ways that the town of Waterford could save money. We've gone the route of hybrid vehicles in a lot of our vehicles. We're weighing the costs of do we go electric or keep going the hybrid road. But we're also looking at energy efficiency. Because there's so much roof space in all of our schools and our large municipal complex out there on the crossroad, is it possible for us to do solar on our largest roofs? Is it worth it? Is it more detrimental to the integrity of the buildings?
Do you think it makes sense?
I think anything you can do that you can be a little bit more conscious of energy savings and just being a better partner. And
you have solar in your house?
I do not have solar on my house.
It would be a great service to the townspeople if you could have somebody study that solar process, because I still don't understand it.
Totally.
And it's very complicated. They're high pressure salesmen. They're knocking down a couple $100,000 a year, those salesmen, and they're good, and they want a signature right away.
Yeah, it's big business.
I don't understand it.
You're not alone, and we have senior services that take care of our, because you know and I know, it's our older population that are the ones have to make these decisions with no counsel, with nobody to talk to. So I'm really appreciate the fact that we have a senior service department in town. It's second to none. Danny Gorman, who runs that program, who's the director now of youth and family and seniors, phenomenal. Has a great staff. So this whole idea of people not having information, I think it's critically important to have people like Danny to sit there and say, yes, if you have questions on anything, please let us know.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so they're all business. Anything that pops up, they'll help with, and they'll provide you some answers and some guidance. But in terms of the solar, in terms of the energy task force, Kevin Gerard, he was on the RTM. He was the chairperson of this energy task force, and we talked a little bit about what can we do. So we've actually, one of the task force recommendations, one of the top ones was, please do a full energy audit. Please have Eversource come in and actually write down on paper and assess our entire town and see how we can save money, but also how we can also be cleaner, where we can be cleaner. So it worked out great.
One other question on energy.
Sure.
We have millstone in our backyard. Is there any talk about building another powerhouse there? And if so, why not?
Yeah, I know I've talked about that. Dominion has not said anything officially. I did have a conversation with Secretary Granholm, the Energy Secretary, when she came out and visited last year here. And she visited Dominion. I got a chance just to talk to the Secretary of Energy and telling her how, this would be great to have Millstone 1 cleaned up and let small modular reactors be a possibility. Love the idea. Everyone's loving those ideas of the next generation. And I think Dominion would entertain that. But there's so many steps that have to go into the regulatory process that who am I to make that decision? Until they do that, it's all Dominion's decision to make sure that they go down that road. I told them it would be great. I would love to have 4 millstones there if we could, because they're great with us. They have a great relationship with the town. Mike O'Connor, the new vice president, who's been there for over 30 years, knows that plan from inside and out, top to bottom. Excellent, smart as a whip, great leader, and he's someone I have faith in, that he's looking at the future. This whole data center conversation wouldn't have happened if someone wasn't thinking about what's needed in New England, what's needed for them. And I think this small modular reactors
Seems
is
like a
really
no-brainer to
important
me.
thing. It is, but I also have to give a shout out to Congressman Courtney. During this whole process, when I first became first selectman back 4 years ago, the big conversation or the hot button was consent-based siting, meaning people can choose if they want to be a site for nuclear waste. Okay, that's really what it is. Dry cask storage being removed from millstone and brought somewhere else, and someone will just say, "We'll take it, and you give us X amount of dollars. We have plenty of room. We have 10,000 acres in the middle of Idaho. We'll take it." Those are the conversations that Congressman Courtney had, and I was able to provide some testimony to the Library of Congress about supporting consent-based siting and making sure that Waterford was fully involved. We don't want this on our property. We do not want to be a host. We want the dry cask storage that's on our property off, like the federal government assured us 30 years ago.
And
So
we're still,
I have not changed.
and we're still paying
And
for, by the way.
We still have it on site, and I want it off like everyone else.
Waterford houses a unique business on Oil Mill Road, the solar farm,
Yeah.
which has been kept very, very quiet.
Yeah.
How is that working out? Does anybody know?
Well, it seems like it's working out. I can say during the preliminary process of a 75-acre solar farm, the concern I got most from the neighbors was 75 acres of trees were just taken down on top of a hill, and the runoff could possibly go into the Jordan Brook and then the Niantic River. So during that whole process, and I think I was in for maybe 6 months in office, I met with the Maureen Fitzgerald, our environmental planner on it, and Abby Pearsall at the time was our director of planning, and I met with both of them and said, "Is this right? Is this how it's done? We're knocking out 75 acres of trees to have clean energy?" Like, it just didn't make sense to me. I didn't get it. And then what happened on Walnut Hill Road, just a year prior to this, Walnut Hill Road had a solar farm in East Lyme. They did the same thing on a slope, and all the runoff went right into the brook in East Lyme. So all this is now, history's repeating itself now in Waterford. So I didn't agree. I wrote actually a letter, and I basically told the siting council that I did not agree with their decision to host a solar farm there. I thought the runoff would have done the same thing that it did in Walnut Hill and East Lyme. I didn't agree with the location. I didn't agree that trees were taken down before everything even happened. And I didn't agree with that the Jordan Brook, which is so protected, which is why we're having issues and sometimes some problems with the airport property, because that's the Jordan Brook too. This is one of those, sacred little streams in our town, and that we're going to protect. And so that's why I was against it. Have not heard much in terms of, it's a quiet neighbor. Give them that. It's quiet. And now, so I haven't heard anything against them or, that there's a problem with it. And we did have our fire marshal go out there and check. We have our planning department that goes out there and checks.
You never know it was there from the road.
You wouldn't.
But, there's rumors that the Friendship School is leaving Waterford. Is that true? And if so, what's the future of that?
Yeah.
Is that going to be another empty building
Well,
in the town of Waterford?
No, I think, it would actually possibly be it might possibly be a wash. The early childhood learning, the Friendship School has about 2.5 years left on a lease agreement with the town of Waterford. Their success has driven a population that we can't handle anymore. The town of Waterford, if you go down the middle of even if today, I guess today and yesterday aren't a good example. First days of schools are always confusing. No offense, but parents get the wrong message, or the students give the wrong message, or there's just a mix-up in communication. You have traffic, you have backups, And same thing that happened last year happened this year. Well, we knew it was gonna, I had a funny feeling we were all settled because we had a full year. Kate Erickson does a great job with Learn. We had some traffic issues, so she talked to us last year about it, fixed them. Well, this year we're seeing the same thing. The model of the Friendship School, it's a great model, great teachers, great kids,
Yeah.
great families. But the drop-off process and pickup process is now a car-driven, parent-driven dilemma. It is, there are no more busing. Parents want to drop their kid off and pick their kid up. It's convenient, it's easy, it's now with EB and everyone working at EB, it's just a nice little track from East Lyme or Waterford, drop them off and pick them up. So to answer your question, about 2 months ago I went to the RTM with basically a sales agreement with the Early Childhood Learning Center, with Learn, selling Southwest School for $1. Southwest School on Daniels Avenue has been vacant now for a number of years. We vacated about 10 years ago, and then the Learn went in there for dual language arts, and then it's been vacant since. It's been vacant since because it's not 80 years old. It needs a lot of environmental cleanup. The building is going to have, I'm sure, asbestos and lead, and it's just going to be very expensive to clean up. So for $1, I got approval from the Board of Selectmen and the RTM to sell Southwest. We increased our boundaries around it, so we have open space around the property, 15 acres of Southwest, so where the building is, and a little bit more for parking and transportation. We would give that for $1. They take on all the responsibility for the environmental cleanup and the demolition of the building. And I thought that was, and our elected officials felt that was a fair deal for the town, because they're going to now have risk involved on taking on that property. They said yes, so now they went to get some funding. They find out in December if they get some federal funding to build a school there, knock that one down. If that happens, we've already addressed part of the child care desert issue that's going on in this country and this state. So, and in the town of Waterford. Daycare is so expensive for our families in Waterford. They hear the Waterford and you hear all these things that we're doing and we have hardworking families that are struggling, and we need to make sure, and I need to make sure I remember that. So if we can create an opportunity where they can build a new school that's clean, that's energy efficient, that's quiet neighbor, they build a couple of pickleball courts for the neighbors, and they clean up the playground, and we have a walking path around it for after hours so the neighbors can use it. We have a win-win for both. That's awesome. We don't have to worry about the cleanup. They worry about the cleanup. They take on that responsibility. They vacate the Early Childhood Learning Center or the Friendship School in the middle of our town, which then gives us some flexibility, because I would immediately, if this gets approved, if they get their funding in December, I'd immediately create an ad hoc committee to assess that building, that space, and talk. I'd have someone on the Board of Ed. I'd have someone on each board to talk about what could be the best bang for our buck with this building. When they leave and vacate, we might have to extend it a year or two because of construction. But when they're empty, if this happens, do we want to expand our community center? Do we want to extend more parking possibly for high school? Do we want to create a trades program? Because you know it better than anyone, being a plumber.
Mm-hmm.
Having a trade, you're carving out your own identity and your own wealth. I think for us, can that help our education system create a work-to-ready kind of program where we have the state?
So there are many options that could be explored.
I think we have a lot more options by going this route, and I feel comfortable and confident. The hardest thing is going to be them getting funding. If they don't, I'm going to go back to the town and I'm going to say, do we sell to a developer who will take on the same environmental conditions?
Let me ask you a couple questions about vacant properties that people want to know,
Sure.
would like answers to.
Sure.
The old Husk gas station
Yes.
has been sitting idle for so long. What's going on with
Waiting
that?
on, from what I've been told, waiting on permits for demolition for the state of Connecticut.
What's going there?
It's going to be a gas station still, a little bit of a shop inside it, more square to the road,
How about the empty old Big Y building next to Job Lot?
I haven't heard anything with them. I think they own the whole building.
I mean, that's a shame that all that square footage just sits there.
I know. I know.
How
Haven't heard
about
anything.
how about the vacant property or the vacant building by Stop and Shop? There's supposed to be a big shot hamburger place going in there.
No. There was going to be a farmer's cow in there, and they went up to Avon instead of Waterford and started their project up there. So that project, there's nothing on the docket right now. There's no one that's come to town hall to get into that building, which I'm surprised. I'm really surprised that hasn't. I don't think it's going to be long before someone goes in there, though.
Is there going to be new firehouse built in place of the Oswegatchie
I hope so.
firehouse?
I hope so.
When is that going to happen?
I hope so. I think right now we're still working on an agreement with, it's called Oswegatchie Fire Company. They've been great to work with. Their building needs work. It needs to be knocked down and a new one built. So we're working right now with them on an agreement where the town of Waterford builds a new firehouse in the middle of our town that we own, that we take care of. It'll be the first one we do. But we have an agreement with Oswegatchie so they can continue to recruit and retain volunteers, and they can continue business. So
Can we go a few more minutes?
Please, go as long
Hey,
as you want.
Reg, we're going to go just a little bit longer. I'm getting ready to
You're getting excited. He's going to hit me hard.
I know I'm hard very shortly here. We've talked about this every time you've been on the show.
Yeah.
And that's the Waterford Airport property.
Yeah.
How can that? Well, whoever owns that has got to have a lot of money, right, to pay the taxes.
Or a lot of patience. 35 years.
Why can't you make something happen here, Rob? You seem to have a grasp on every other piece of property, but why do you keep striking out with that property?
If I had a basically frontage road, if we had a parkway that actually exited and entered, like New London does right down the street, it would be great. We have a dead-end street. So really, in terms of business model, it doesn't take anyone, you're a business owner, you want to be on a dead-end street? No, you don't want to be on a dead-end street. You want to make sure that traffic can go by, you get to you easy, leave easy, and that will improve business. So that's one design flaw I think about that that area, because it limits you. Now we've had takers, we've had companies come in and say we want to buy it.
Was Amazon interested in it?
Who?
Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon was interested in it. They went pretty far with there, but they're in the same boat.
Now they deal with you when something like this comes on.
Initially, when someone comes to town hall, they want to get a kind of an idea of something, like an idea. They'll come in and they'll ask. And I give them kind of an idea of where I'm at and what the town. I more educate the people coming into town hall, and I give them pretty much, this is what the town's all about. These are the pluses of coming to Waterford. In terms of the airport property, there's not going to be a shortage of people buying that property and trying to develop that property. It's on everyone's little list of I want this. We had one of the top 5 developers in the state, in the country, came in, purchased it, and basically said, we're going to do X, Y, about 1 million square feet of business space, okay? Just 1 million square feet. Here are the buildings. This is the layout. We want all 350 acres. Well, they spec built. And when they couldn't get the largest tenant, and you can probably guess as one of our largest tenants now in the area is, I can't say names, but submarines are pretty important. And when that doesn't happen, well, they can't just go on a risk and build 1 million square feet if the largest employer in Southeastern Connecticut may not want space. So I think that was something where I'm trying to work now with Paul Weiscover down with Sector. I'm trying to work with him. I just met with him this week, trying to work with him a little bit more.
Are you optimistic that something's going to be built?
I am.
I just turned 72 and I want something to happen.
I know. Imagine this. You were like 40 when that went up for sale. Isn't that crazy?
Who owns
you were 40.
Who is the owner of the property? It was Reynolds Aluminum, wasn't it, at one time?
Well, they were the company that was there, and I think who bought it. I lose sight. They're in Arizona. It's a group that owns the property, but they haven't been the problem. They've sold 3 or 4 times. It's when you start getting to the next level and you start really doing a deep dive. This is why I had the governor there. I've had Senator Blumenthal at that property. I've had the new commissioner of economic development, Alexandra Dahm there. I did an article, with Channel 3 there. Interview with Channel 3 there. I sat at that way station. I said, if you just made this an exit, like it used to be, keep the way station. We'll develop this property in probably weeks.
That's the key to that property.
It is the key, because
And
people.
what is the resistance?
Well, it's a big process because there's, with the DOTs involved, I have a greater respect for what they have to do and figure out lanes, the distance that you have to enter and exit. They have to deal with the narrowing of 95. That's been a study 10 years ago. There's a study already done of where the pinch points are, where it's dangerous to come on and off. All I wanted, because I made it sound kind of simple. I just want people, they're going to have to get off the exit to weigh their truck, and there's a ton of space to the right. Why can't we just do an exit right to a business park? And at least one way of traffic is taken care of. Everyone I talked to absolutely felt the same way. That's a great idea. It's a lot tougher when you get to, and I'm not criticizing DOT. I went up to Wethersfield or Newington, or I think it was Wethersfield where I went, and I met with them. I met with all the brass. I met with the feds. And I went with my team of legal counsel and our planning director, and they basically said, you need to kind of show how this will work. You need to show a little bit more of who's going to be there. You don't even have a tenant. So you can't do something like that. I wouldn't expect the state to spend money on something that might be an idea. I wouldn't want that. So, and I respect where they're at, but I'm trying to have this conversation with them that if you're doing this work, promote this little area, because you don't have housing, you don't have any more business space. So even if this wind farm, if it actually takes off, blows up, there's no land except the airport property and Waterford and distance out. So it's really important that we get this one figured out. That I'm hoping that the state and the federal DOT will look at that little exit and start helping us out a little bit. They're doing it at Costco right now. And you see what's going on. Just for one exit, one ramp, it'll probably be a $500 million
I think that is the most ridiculous plan that has ever been submitted or orchestrated on behalf of the state of Connecticut. The DOT, whoever's involved with it, including the town of East Lyme, it's ridiculous for two exits. I did an interview with Mr. Santoro, who's running for first selectman the other day.
Yep.
And she brought me up to speed. The reason that's being done is for safety on exit 74 and 75. They're ruining the town, as far as I'm concerned. That's a different subject. I don't want to get you in hot water with that, because I put my foot in my mouth a lot of times. You said something about blowing up. Speaking of blowing up, let's talk about the Crystal Mall.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you be happy if they blew that thing up? I mean, what's the story?
I'd be happy if Murray Renshaw Plumbing was in there, man. Create this wholesale plumbing business.
Yeah.
No, I keep saying this. I'm cautiously optimistic because there's a lot of attention on this area. It's unique because we're not in the city.
Because of EB?
I think because of EB, and because we're the last little bit of space. People want to be in our area. There is zero doubt. If you circle now where you want to be, this is the Southeastern Connecticut, where you're Stonington. Great town, well run. Danielle Cheeseborough, the first selectman out there, first selectwoman out there. Great job out in Stonington. You keep working your way down, and then you get to Burt, and you get to these Hendrick, then you get to Mayor Passero. You get to people that are really doing a lot of work for their towns and their cities. This area with Mystic all the way out to Old Saybrook, this area is an amazing area. So when you have the jobs and you have the casinos, the perfect triangle, that spot where the Crystal Mall is, I don't have to sell the area. It's not my $300 million. So I can have all the ideas I want, Murray, but it's up to someone to come in and say, we're making this commitment. I've had communications with NAMDAR. NAMDAR was the buyer. I don't know NAMDAR from a hole in the wall like anybody else, but I know NAMDAR made a business decision to purchase the mall. Sears goes up for auction again. Remember, someone didn't meet the number, so they put it back on the auction block. So in 2 weeks, there'll be another auction for Sears. I'm watching that auction very carefully now. I watched the last one carefully in real time of what the bids were, and I'll do the same thing for this. I'm very aware of the trickle-down effect of if you get Sears and you have the mall, is that advantageous? Because you still have Macy's property currently owned by its own entity. So I think I'm going to watch that auction, and find out at that moment, where the opportunities are going to be.
The day paper reported that the new owner of the mall had a history of not really developing it, but just sitting on it.
Yeah.
I guess was that in fact accurate? And what do you see happening there in the next 5 years, if anything?
Yeah.
Is if you were to look in your crystal ball?
I think it gets developed as mixed use. That's what I think.
Mixed use meaning housing,
Housing,
and commercial.
Retail, recreation, maybe business park type. There's plenty of land there. There's tons of acreage to develop. And I think if you start thinking about, most of the, mall redevelopments in the country, it's all been a mixed use kind of, formula. So I think this is no different. But what's different about the Crystal Mall is that we don't have 300,000 people in our area. So, you're always dealing with population. New London is only, 36,000, we're 20. You get people in East Lyme, maybe another 20. Like, you don't have the mass population.
Is the Waterford population growing?
Yeah, it's pretty stable.
So on
19,400 is kind of the number we've been.
On Great Neck Road, Skip Adams is doing a development. I saw they have one building up. I don't know if that's the first house or.
It's the model. It's the model house.
Yeah.
That will be the model house. Yeah.
Where are these people coming from in view of the fact that the population isn't growing?
I think it's just a matter of, out-of-staters. Out-of-staters are finding Connecticut to be very attractive instead of maybe Boston or New York City. So I think the area in general is just an area where people are looking to get away. People want a summer home. Teachers that teach in the city, hey, maybe I'll do, because I have one on my road. So I got a chance to meet somebody from New York, a teacher who bought a house right next to Great Neck School, and now is there every single weekend just to get out of the city. So that type of thing is happening. I think we have generational families in the town of Waterford, so it's not uncommon to have a grandmother, the family, and now kids in the same town. We don't want to move. We just want to stay here, but maybe downsize. So this vision that Skip Adams has was the first vision. Did you know it's the first development built of this size in like 30 years? Like you think, wow, and we look at it as, oh my God, he's doing all these houses. Like we've had zero. This is like one of the largest. It's only 40 units. So 40 homes or units. Some are connected, with garage to garage, which is kind of convenient. Because if I was going to buy one and I want my in-laws to come down and own the other one, that's great. I can take care of my in-laws. So there's some flexibility with his plan that's really attractive to people, and he's not having a hard time. He's pretty much trying to keep up with the demand of what he's done. So I think he's doing a nice job of keeping everything kind of in perspective. 1,350 square foot is the largest one, which is 1,250 is the norm. They're not a ton of square footage, but it's a master bedroom on the first floor. It's a slab. It's one-car garage. So it's really generating for, maybe the retiree, the person, or has two homes, that type of thing. So I think he's done a good job there. And I also think with housing comes, some responsibilities too. We need to make sure, can the schools handle it? Can we handle it with our first responders, things of that nature.
So I think you hit the nail on the head when you said we have a tremendous place to live and work in this area. I don't think we appreciate it, but the fact of the matter is we got it all happening right here. I don't think
we didn't even talk about schools. Remember the last time we talked? Like we didn't even talk about the schools. We didn't talk about our educators. We didn't talk about how amazing, all facets are. So now you start talking about all of our first responders, our fire, our combination fire department is becoming the model in Connecticut.
Well, we'll do that the next time, Rob.
That'd be great.
So, one thing I wanted to comment, social media is a driving force in today's society. Seems like you are on it all the time. You're every place. I never can open it up without Rob Brule being here. You got a good handle on what's going on, Rob. I think you're doing a hell of a job.
I appreciate it,
And,
Murray. I appreciate
Keep up
it.
the good work.
Thank you. Appreciate
But
it.
one thing the people
gray?
are wondering:
Yeah,
where do you get your haircut? Is that a toupee?
not yet.
There's been some question.
Not yet.
Who's your hairdresser? And because you always look good, you know.
I got to give a shout out. To Melissa Acanero, Utopia Hair Salon. Good, faithful person I've gone to for a long time. Small business, go if you're in Waterford, hit Utopia. But yeah, it's just a great person. I go to her all the time, and they're getting grayer though. They're getting grayer.
Well, it still looks good. Rob, thank you for coming on.
Thanks.
It's an honor to have you here. Thanks for watching the show, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.